This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the T. Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
Yes, it is. And I survived a hurricane and I survived lobster season.
And no holes in the boat?
No holes in the boat. Yeah, I tell you, we had, let's just put it this way. This was the worst lobster season I've ever had. I've gone down, my brother and I have gone down now probably for 30 years or maybe longer.
Ever since I've known you.
Yeah. So what happened is, 3 of us, and we got 3 lobsters total.
Well, then you didn't get in trouble.
So the key was, we figured the trip cost $900, so each lobster cost $300. That was the most expensive dinner I've ever had in my whole life.
Did they have COVID?
I didn't. After I ate them, I didn't ask.
Yeah, but it doesn't make difference. It's like golf. How was your game? Oh, it was horrible, but I had a lot of fun. So you had a great time. Do you know how tired I get hearing, like, oh my gosh, you've been gone all day and all you did was have fun?
And your point is?
You left me alone all day.
I love every minute of it. Whenever I'm on the boat, whenever I'm in the water, I'm just a happy camper.
You are. You're a water baby.
So no holes in the boat?
No.
I'm surprised you don't have a water bed.
Why would I? You're the only person in the world that burned down a waterbed.
I did have.
You ever hear of somebody that actually burned?
No, wait a minute.
No,
We
it's
got to
a
hear
true
this.
This is the absolute truth.
True story. And Joe knows because he's been to Maryland. And I was almost 12 o'clock. It was on a Saturday, and I had a police officer that got shot. And I was waiting to hear the 12 o'clock news, and I was on the Beltway in Maryland. And I had a radio for the fire department, and I heard beep, beep, beep. Oh, I said, that's Company 3. I heard the address. I said, oh, that's my address. And I rushed home, and my waterbed had caught on fire between 12 and 12:30 p.m. I had just left the house, and now everybody says, well, doesn't it just put the fire out? But yes, it does eventually, but you used to...
After it melts the whole top layer.
Everything, yeah.
And then it starts trickling out over the thing.
And then you get smoke damage everywhere.
Can you? I mean, honestly, only there's.
No,
Let me tell you, this is the only story we can tell on the air about Victoria because they get much more fun. I mean, she has some interesting.
I do have some more stories.
Yeah, I know.
But they're true. Those are the nice parts.
340-1590, 340-1590. Yes, I am Joe Martek, financial advisor, and sitting with me here today is Ms. Victoria Loyd, Remax of Stewart, hardest working realtor known Maine demand, maybe the hardest working person I've ever known.
Well, 24 hours a day, that's 7 days a week.
That's not bad. Well, you do, you know, I always said you have 2 speeds. You're either working or sleeping.
Yeah, but the problem is, and Lenny said to me this morning, which is my husband, said, hey, did you sleep good last night? I said, yeah, I did, but I think I never stopped thinking. So
well,
I had all these things in my mind still going.
I will tell you this. Years ago, I learned when I wake up and I'm thinking, I got to get up and write it down because I'm never going to go back to sleep if I don't.
Well, I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
get up.
yeah.
Sometimes I make hot tea and go back to bed.
Yeah. We also have Alan Love here, retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin, guest member for the last 5 or 10 years or so. We're not sure how long. You're not looking any younger, Alan.
That's true. I apologize. It'll take me a few minutes to get into the show because in my head, all I've got in my head is da 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 da, the theme song from the previous show.
Oh, nice.
Greg, I suggest that you expand your musical repertoire.
That's their theme. What can I say?
I
It's
know.
like Rocky. You're going to go out fighting.
That's right.
It's the Rocky
It's a
thing.
great theme, though.
Hey, I like our theme on the other show better.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. Spirit.
Jesus Christ Superstar or something?
No,
Well,
no.
you know, I might want to switch it to that. But we do Spirit in the Sky.
Oh, that's a good one.
written by a Jewish guy, and he wrote this Spirit Inside Christian song.
Couldn't do that on a commercial station.
No, that's true.
Copyright.
You can't do it. Yeah. So in fact, they interviewed him. They said, "Why you're a Jew? Why did you write a Christian song?" He says, "Who's going to listen to a Jewish song?"
Alan would.
Now, wait
Alan
a minute.
would.
Oh.
There are wonderful.
They
Hava
are.
Nagila. I mean, what am I? Come on, let's face it. Rock and roll and Yiddish just don't seem to flow.
I don't know. They're pretty happy. I've been to many synagogues, and they are
Absolutely.
amazing what they do. They're party animals.
You
Hey,
ha-
listen, I
you-
have seen the Orthodox Jews praying and singing their blessing. This makes Gregorian chant look boring. I mean, you know.
Joe,
We have a show on STU on Friday mornings. It's great. It's called A Priest and a Rabbi.
Uh-huh.
And their theme song is hysterical.
What is it?
It's sacrilegious on both sides, but it is so funny.
No, I thought you're not allowed to have a theme song.
Oh, they wrote it. Oh, the priest wrote it.
Oh, they wrote it.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. So they got their own song.
It's wonderful.
They own their own copyrights, Joe.
Yeah, they do. They
Well,
do.
when you have your own song, yeah.
It's
We can
wonderful.
write a song. I could write a song for ours if you'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's gonna sing it? I've listened to Lenny sing. I don't want him.
We can sing it. We can all be the singers
Listen,
in
I
our own
can't
song.
sing. You know, listen, I could do rap.
340-1590. Maybe we can get some
340-1590.
Yeah, maybe we can get some people to call in and talk about what this show is really about, like
What's this
real
show
estate,
What's this show really? Oh,
trust in estates,
Boating,
finances,
boating,
insurance,
lobster diving,
boat
Bahamas,
repair.
Boat repair. Hey, speaking of the rest of the members, Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, Greg Fasula, attorney, and Joe Martek, we all started doing these shows 16 years ago. Never had a clue we'd still be doing them, or even be doing them even a month after we started. But here it is. And then back about 8 or 9, or let's see, it was 08 or 09, you and Mike Powers joined
Yeah,
the show.
it's about that time. It's been so long.
What
I don't
hap-
keep track of time. I don't even wear a
Well,
watch.
I have a hard, you've got your cell phone. What do you need a watch for?
Yeah, but I still know approximately what time it is all the time. Always have.
But the whole concept when you and Mike came in was after during the Great Recession, when they had all kinds of fake news has been the newest thing since. You can't trust anything you read, hear, or radio, TV, no matter what it is, because back then they said, okay, we have this real estate crisis. What's the crisis? Well, there's no mortgage money available. Well, that was never true. Never true. VA mortgages were still no money down. FHA mortgages were as little as 3.5% down. USDA had a no money down mortgage. Where it did have a problem was jumbo loans, over $675,000, because those are not bought by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are government agencies. Those are held by independent banks. So all of a sudden, they tightened up the underwriting, and they said, hey, you now have to prove that you can make the payment. What a concept. Greg, can you imagine?
A lot of people didn't like that, though, Joe. That
No kidding.
upset them. What do you mean that I have to do it? We got a call yesterday, and the guy wanted to get pre-qualified. And when Mike was excited, and he said, I'll do it, but he has $15,000 and no job. So there's just
Sounds like
something
me.
about that.
Sounds like, hey, you got 15,000?
But, you
I'm
know,
going to cuddle up to you.
there's something about that just doesn't work.
Well, you know, it's what happens is, and this is where the lenders are a bit skittish during this COVID thing too, because you might have a job today, but you might be laid off tomorrow. So
Right.
they really don't know until we get this vaccine taken care of. We're going to be in a flux for a few more weeks. I hope it's only weeks.
It's not going to be weeks, Joe,
Well, you don't. How do you know?
because I'm a gambling girl
How often do you win?
all the time.
You would. If you didn't win all the time, you wouldn't be working all the time.
No, that's not true. I got to stay active.
Yeah, I know, but you know, you could be driving the motorhome for Lenny, and he'd be playing more golf.
Just did that this morning.
Did you drive? You drove the motorhome?
It just took it over the shop.
340-1590, 340-1590. So, literally, I got a kick out of our hurricane that never happened, and the media. And you know, I feel sorry for these kids. Greg, you grew up in the media business, TV and radio, when you were young at one time too. But I look at these kids, and they have to go stand in a puddle to make it look like it's really a problem. And, it's not their idea. There's some producers telling them, hey, go out there and lean over like the wind is blowing, right?
They did that in the
and
last
stand in a
hurricane.
puddle. Stand in a puddle.
Classic was the Weather Channel guy who was leaning like it was, really
Blowing,
windy.
right.
And there was a postal guy that was pushing his cart right behind.
Oh my
Don't
God.
you
It's
love
one
those?
of the great outtakes.
Yeah, but you don't understand. The postal card had tailwinds. That's why he was just going.
There you go.
Yeah, the other guy was standing in the wrong
Well,
spot.
you remember when Jim Cantori came to town?
Oh, yeah, last
So
year.
people said, I think we're going to have a real hurricane. Cantori's here. When he gets out in the rain, he wants it blowing like crazy. 'Cause, is he still in the business or is he gone?
Oh, yeah. The funniest thing, did you hear the North Carolina governor blasting our governor here?
Why?
Because
We sent the storm to him.
well, that's part of it. But our governor said this was just a trial run for us because
Yeah.
the storm's not bad.
Yeah.
Well, as
And for us, it wasn't.
and as every meteorologist predicted, once it leaves Florida, it's going to increase speed.
And North Carolina's
and
where it's gonna
intensity.
go.
And that's Well, and he's blaming the Florida governor because they weren't prepared.
Wait a
What?
minute. Let me ask you a question. Is the governor of North Carolina a Democrat?
Yes.
Okay, I feel better now. That makes sense then to me. What do you think, Alan?
Makes sense to me.
You did. I showed you. You did see the. I think my dog's a Democrat. The country song.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the great country songs of all time.
I never heard it.
YouTube. You got to look it up. I think my dog's a Democrat. Just do it.
Okay.
You will laugh
I'll have to
like
try.
crazy. It is so cute. But the thing was, it was written back in '16. This is before Trump.
Wow.
So even then, there was some precursors of thinking liberalism might not be the way to go. But the key with the song, it makes it so funny. He says, I take care of his food. I take care of his medicine. All he does is lay around the house all day long. Pretty soon, I think he's going to want to vote if he could get a card as an illegal.
Oh no.
I think my dog's a Democrat. It was so funny, the
That's
country
funny.
song. 340-50. And now, listen, my mother, and you knew my mother very well.
I did.
If Bill Clinton ran again, my mother would come out of the grave to vote for him. I mean,
Right.
there's no doubt about it. That was her favorite president. My mother voted based on charisma and good looks.
Sure, I understand. Just
Yeah.
like JFK.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
big
it's
time.
all the same story, and that's what we thought. And it doesn't. The thing that I think that people have to understand, just because we're one way one time, like you're Italian, so you got to be Catholic. It doesn't mean you always have to be Catholic. So, and if you're a Democrat and now you feel no, it doesn't, and you could be a Republican.
Well,
You
that's
can
because the
make
Pope's
changes.
not an Italian anymore. I mean, they.
Pope's German. Oh, that's the other guy.
Wait, and he's not even Catholic. I think he's Jesuit, right?
Yeah, he's not Catholic.
Yeah, they don't think they're Catholics, do they? They dance to they don't they send memos to the Vatican and saying, "What are you talking about? We don't do that stuff."
That's funny.
One of my former professors has heard about us blasting them. He's not a happy camper at me.
Yeah.
Said, you didn't learn anything in my class. I said, naturally. I got into this business.
Yeah,
Oh,
isn't that
gosh.
the truth? 340-1590, 340-1590. So, Vic, mortgage rates are at an all-time low.
Absolutely.
Mike was saying they had them below 3% sometimes.
Yeah, 2.75.
I mean,
A lot of them.
unbelievable
Yeah,
number.
amazing.
And new
But your credit score had to be pretty good. You're
Oh,
not going
well,
to get it if your
well, if
score's
you got
real
a
low.
775,
But it-
800, you're okay, right?
But even if it's a little lower, what's a 3%? I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah, for a quarter percent more. yeah.
Anything in a single digit, Joe, is great. Don't
Well,
complain.
Listen, we used to think if we ever got back to 10, it'd be a miracle.
I
remember?
know, after 18 and
Yeah,
19%.
But the big thing they say is lack of inventory on resales. It's just,
Well, there is. I mean, let's talk about reality, what really does happen out there, not so much what you're reading or you're hearing. Reality is these lenders are still so far behind because of the virus. I had 2 closings on Friday, and you're getting the paperwork right when we're sitting down to close.
yeah.
And here's people that got to move out of their home. We still don't even know
Yeah.
if we have a clear to close.
Right.
They're saying this is absolutely ridiculous. They have to get to the bank to wire the funds.
Right.
But I mean, they're making it to that date, and sometimes you might need an extension.
Well, my girlfriend, she's Liberty Title, and
She is experiencing
D,
it too.
D every time. How's your day going? She was terrible. And I said, fighting with the boss. She goes, no.
No, it's the
no,
lenders.
It's lenders, and I'm chasing, and they say they're going to, and they don't. Like you said, well, I think last week, what day it was, she says, I'm waiting for the wire to come through, and it's 5:30, and how can I get it? I can't get it because the banks are closed.
Let me tell you what happened with the wires too.
Yeah.
This is the first time in all the years I've been in business the feds held up the money
No kidding.
for the first time, Joe.
Why?
Well, one of it was because of the gentleman's name was very common, and he wanted his birthday, he wanted his middle initial. Yeah, they were asking a lot of questions.
Looking for
so
money laundering is a
yes,
big
are.
topic. these
And
days.
I've never had that happen before
No.
either. Never ever. And I've been selling since 1978 and never ever had that happen.
Money laundering, Greg. This. I do my
Really?
continuing
Yeah, this is
education
true stuff.
courses every year, and the big topic, the biggest single topic, is money laundering. So what I am done, when somebody comes in the door and they want to open a brokerage account, my broker dealers and most all of them want only a personal check, not a bank check, not a certified check, not a cashier's check, not a money order. Those could be money laundered. But a personal check, you draw it on your personal bank account, money got deposited in that account, and there's some kind of tracking done on that deposit system. So even if you have a job and you're getting paid like $2,000 a week or a month, whatever, that's a regular paycheck is coming into the bank. But I watched a bartender who saves her tips up, and when she gets like $2,000 to $3,000 in tips, she takes that cash into the bank. Well, she then applied for a mortgage. Big problem. They're looking at this source of money and saying, where are you getting all this cash from? And it was called, because I get tips and I save them up. Well, you should better not save so much at one time, because you have a pattern, it looks like, of laundering $2,000 and $3,000 at a time on this drug deals.
Well, the problem is she wasn't paying taxes on that money, and so it wasn't showing on her tax returns, which does create a problem.
Well,
That's like getting paid under the table.
well, it is getting paid under the table. If
Yes.
you don't report it, you're violating.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the
But
same
she
theory.
may have. I didn't ask her that. But the bottom line was they were looking at money laundering when they were doing the
Well,
mortgage.
isn't it, Joe? Tell me. So if I go in and I try to get, is it $10,000?
What happens is if you deposit money in a bank, supposedly when there's 10,000 or more, they're going to send a report to the Internal Revenue banking system that you deposited 10,000 or more dollars. Well, there's tons of people that deposit 10,000 or more. It's all legitimate money. It's not a problem. But let's say you deposit $5,000 a week. They're going to report that also.
Yeah, 'cause
because
you have a pattern.
You're showing a pattern.
Right.
So the concept today of trying illegal money that's floating around, that's one of the reasons why, Alan, you and I have talked about this now for the last couple of years. I'm for a value-added tax, which is a national sales tax, which means I don't care who you are, everybody pays into the system, because you can't hide a tax money. When you buy, you walk in, like, Greg, if I had to pay you $1,000 to be on the show, but if you had to tax it, if we
That's per show.
Here's
Yeah, per show.
cash money. Let's don't report it. You know what I'm trying to say? People can go both ways and not report it. But if you value added, now you got to go out and buy groceries. You got to pay electricity. So everything would be taxed. You can't hide a dime. Every illegal can't hide a dime. Every under the table, they got to buy groceries. They got to buy gas.
Sure.
All of it gets taxed.
I like it.
Yeah. Well,
Well, that's the way they really should do it.
it works like the way a lot of places overseas. In the Bahamas, they have a 12.5% value-added tax. Everybody pays 12.5% on everything. Okay, guess what? There's no personal income tax. Don't have to have an infernal revenue, because all that money is everything that's it's sold.
Are
value-added.
there other taxes though, like property taxes?
Yes, in the Bahamas, yes, there is.
Their
They've
property
changed
taxes
that
too?
now.
They
Yeah,
changed
I
that
have
now?
a friend that owns in the Bahamas, and they have changed that, and it's kind of killing things because the taxes on the properties are so high.
Well, real estate value. 340-1590, 340-1590. So, Alan,
Yes.
any rumors going on the south side of town?
No, not really, but I can tell you an interesting story. You were talking about the weather earlier. Well, this is a funny story from my previous hometown, Milwaukee. There was a longtime weatherman by the name of Bill Carlson, and he did a commercial for a coffee called Butternut Coffee, which was very popular in the Wisconsin area. Greg is shaking his head.
It's a national coffee. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what happened was that part of the commercial was at the end of the commercial he would take a sip of butternut coffee. Well, on his last weathercast, he was doing his final butternut coffee commercial, but it wasn't coffee. It was a little stronger than that. He takes a sip and he says, "Boy, this is the best butternut coffee I've ever tasted."
Put a little shot of whiskey in there.
A little
huh?
additive once in a while makes coffee better. Let's
I
face it.
do love those though. If I have coffee, well, when I do, like that, I love coffee with a little whiskey or something, and they're Baileys.
Ooh.
Isn't that nice? I mean, it really is kind of nice. Yeah. Hey, I like Scotch too, Joe.
See,
that's my.
she's hung with the Jesuits, because the Jesuits, in order to be a Jesuit, you have to drink Scotch. Isn't that true?
I like. Well, I never was a drinker till somebody introduced me to Scotch because everything was too sweet.
Was that me?
No,
No.
it was in Maryland before you.
340-1590, 340-1590. So other than that, we don't have Greg here, we don't have Dan here, we don't have Mike here. Let's talk a little bit.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
Did you see the news story last night about, it was in St. Lucie County, I think, or Martin County, one or the other, where titles are being taken from
Yeah, oh yeah, they
homeowners?
talk about that all the time.
About what?
Yeah, titles. They're titles. Where people are trying to go in there and find out your title on your property and then try to sell that home to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
How
yeah,
is that
That's
done?
been going on forever though.
it has been going on forever, and there's actually, you can buy insurance, title protection against somebody doing that fraudulently. But let me just tell you something. When I hear this kind of stuff, if somebody tries to forge names on titles, there has to be a notary, there's got to be all kinds of stuff. So there's multiple people that are involved. It isn't just one person. So this is really heavy-duty criminal stuff. I have never heard of anybody losing their house, because once they find out their house is sold to somebody else, now they've got to go back to the title company, which has insurance. The title insurance agency guarantees the title.
As long as you're still in business.
If they fraudulently did it. Now, if you just do a quit claim deed to somebody, that's entirely possible.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Quit claim deed, simply,
yeah,
I
yeah.
sign it and just say, hey, I no longer own it. It's yours. Do whatever you want with it. I'm not giving you any warranties, nothing. You better go record that sucker right now and hope there's nothing in between.
And let's take it a step further. The next thing that they're trying to do is every time we have a closing, these people know that you're having a closing on property, and they send you a letter and says, would you like a copy of your warranty deed? Well, the warranty deed comes with you when you close on the property anyway.
Wait a minute. Back up. How do they know you're having a closing?
Well, because everything is public records. They go into public records and they see these closings taking place.
However, he said a week or so before the closing, how do they know when they find out there's going to be one?
Well, the only way they can find out a week before is if they go on a pending file or something. Because remember, everything is public records anymore.
No, but there's nothing is there until it's closed.
No. You can go on Realtor.com and see a property that it's pending.
Okay,
I mean, you can
Realtor.com. Now,
you can
see, that's how.
those.
That's
yeah,
how.
there's
the
public
internet
knowledge.
again.
Yeah, the internet has done some really. So they say to you. So I just want people to realize you do not need to do this. They ask you to mail them money. I think it's $60 or so.
Here we go again.
And they'll give you a copy of your warranty deed. It's not illegal because
No.
they go get a copy of it.
Big deal.
It's public record, and send you a copy. You don't need to do that because when you close on that property, you get a copy of your warranty
And the
deed.
title insurance company is going to take care of all of that stuff.
Always.
Always.
Or your attorney.
Well, the attorney writes title insurance also. I mean, the whole concept is this. Whether it's a title insurance company or an attorney, attorneys use lawyer's title. That's the title insurance company for most attorneys, but they don't have to. They can use other ones too. But the concept is the title insurance company is guaranteeing you that you own this place when the closing comes.
Exactly.
And they got millions of dollars backing them up in case of fraud. So when I see somebody say somebody's going to forge your deed and sell your house and take it away from you, well, okay, let's go back to the title insurance company. Real simple.
Right.
But people get
So who goes to jail?
well, whoever
Who
is
they can
committing the
catch.
fraud.
Yeah.
Whoever's committing the fraud. The title insurance company didn't commit the fraud. They guaranteed you owned it. Somebody else came in and pretended they owned it and forged a deed and sold it to somebody else. Then they probably sold a cash deal with no title insurance, because if the title insurance agency goes back and pulls the deeds and says they guarantee that you own this house when you close, and if it's not, they're liable. They are liable. So
Wow.
yeah, why do we have insurance, Greg? Listen, life insurance, health insurance, none of us like insurance, but once in a while, or not once in a while, most of the time we're scared to death to take the risk not to have shy. So when you buy your house for $300,000, let's say you paid cash for it, makes it even scarier. You want to know for sure that you own that piece 1,000%. The title insurance company guarantees you own it, and they may have some exclusions in there. Some of the exclusions might be because there's an easement for utilities. Okay,
Which I have on my property.
Who cares? That's okay. An easement for water line or power line or something. Those would be the exclusions. But they don't exclude it from everything. They only have certain specific things. Otherwise, you'd never buy it.
Victoria, you were told that there was that easement there before you bought it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
When they did the survey of my property, there's a utility easement that runs through, and the prior owner had put a shed on top of it, which was legal. He got a permit.
Yeah.
It's legal. But they just say if we ever have to get into those lines, we're going to take it down, but
Yeah.
we're not going to put it up. It's not at our expense.
No, if
we'll
you-
take it down, but we're not putting another up.
If you went back and looked at your deed and your title insurance policy, it's like 20 pages long, you'll see exclusions in there. You might get a kick out of finding out what you're excluded for.
I haven't looked at it in years.
Nobody looks at it.
It's-
I mean,
Most people don't.
that's it. But there are exclusions in there, like acts of war, emergency fire. They might need to go across your property. There's all kinds of some things that make perfect sense.
And they should point them out to you, though. They give it to you prior, usually 10 to 15 days, depending on what your contract says, prior to closing, so you have that time to look it over.
However, do you look it over?
Nobody does.
That's my point. 340-1590, 340-1590. Every week I have you, Alan. Looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I
Pregnant
wanted to tell you another interesting story. A cousin of mine who's now 63 years old moved from Wisconsin to Maui when he was 30 years old.
Congrats.
And he bought a property that gave an easement for him to cross the neighboring property to go to the beach, which was right there.
Yeah.
So he had in the deed permission to go
Walk
to
across
the
that property,
beach.
right?
Yes.
So a couple of years later, a gentleman bought that property and said, "No way are you coming on my property." And that gentleman happened to be George Harrison, the Beatle.
No kidding.
No kidding. It went all the way to the Hawaii Supreme Court, and my cousin won.
Of course.
He should have. Yeah, it's been there forever.
Once you have that
Just 'cause
deed
he's a Beatle
restriction
doesn't
in
mean
there,
he's going to get away with
once
it.
once a deed, you in order to modify or alter it, everybody has to agree. You just don't automatically say you can't do it anymore.
See the newspaper
Unless you're-
headline, Beetle stomped. Oh.
Don't quit your day job. You're not
Oh,
very
okay.
funny, Greg.
Oh.
I'm telling you. This is 340-1590, 340.
Quiet out there. People aren't calling in. Normally they do.
Well,
Where are you guys?
Hey, listen.
They got to have questions.
Let me talk about circumstances that every week I get a new client or prospect or somebody, and they'll have some questions. And sometimes they have certain contracts, and I look at them. And this week I had a lady that brought in her annuity contracts, and they are what's called fixed index annuities. Now, you remember that word, Alan
Your
index?
favorite, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, what happened is even Alan, Alan had a securities license years ago, so he thought he was pretty up to speed when it comes into this, quote, fixed index annuity. Well, when it says fixed index annuity, these are interest-paying vehicles, and the interest they pay is going to be based on the bond market, which if you look at Treasury bills, they're 1, 2, and 3%. And the insurance company really can't pay more money than they take in. But they do have some wiggle room on how they pay the client back. So this particular lady, her program, she was invested in 2 indexes, but she's not invested in them. She's paid interest based on the performance of the index. Got that, Greg?
No, I'm
Okay.
confused.
You're going to get paid interest.
Okay.
How am I going to get paid the interest? Well, we're going to look at the Standard & Poor's 500, and let's say it goes up 10% a year. We are now going to pay you interest based on the performance of that index. Okay, so it goes up 10%. Do you think you're going to get 10%?
I would hope so.
You won't, because it has a cap, CAP. The cap, one of them was 1%. 1. So if it goes up 10, you get 1. It goes up a half, you get a half.
Why the hell would you buy something like that?
Because you didn't. Can you imagine this happening in real life, that people may not have told you the truth? Can you imagine that ever happening?
No.
I didn't think so.
They don't point out what you really should know.
What happens is what they call these errors and omissions. What happens
There's
is
insurance for that.
well, and that's what happens. So what happens is you, the consumer, have to go back and file suit and go back through. But you now have in your contract, it says you've got 10 days or 30 days to cancel it and get your money back. If you don't do it during that period of time, you're screwed. You're stuck. So this is a big problem. So what happened is, in her contract, she had 2 different indexes. One had a cap of 3.5 and one had a cap of 1. So I said, okay, fine. The best you're going to do is make roughly 2.5% a year. Some people are okay with 2.5% a year if they know if they were told the truth. Okay? Now, makes it even more complicated. During the course of these contracts, normally if you take any money out, none of it generates any interest. You're only taking your own money back. Partial withdrawals, you can take them, but normally you're taking your own money back. How in the world do you ever collect on these contracts? What they do, and now this is the way it works, and it can work for you. Let's say you take it out when you're 60 and you're going to retire at 72. Let's just use that number, 12 years later. Well, they'll say, when you retire, we will now pay you an income for the rest of your life. And they have factors. And the factor might be much better than it had been from an interesting standpoint, because they then calculate how long you're going to live. Based on actuarial experience, they calculate how much you're going to live. Some of these contracts say, well, when you run out of money, it's gone. You're not going to get paid anymore. Some of them, like I called up. What I normally do is I sit with the client and I call the company directly. I don't talk to an agent. I talk directly to the company and on speakerphone. So what I did, I said, okay, fine. So she's going to get an income every year for life, right? They gave me the dollar figure. And I said, now, when the account value goes to 0, does she still collect? Yes, she does. I said, okay, that's number 1. That's good. Number 2, what happens if she's getting 1 payment and she dies? Beneficiary gets the balance of the actual valued in the account, not the insurance value, but the actual value. So let's say it's $20,000 and she takes out $2,000 a month for 10 months.
They get 18.
That's 20 grand, right? And the account value was 20 and she dies, money's gone. Beneficiaries get nothing. But she now continues to get that. She isn't going to get $2,000 a month. I'm just giving you an arbitrary figure. She had to have a lot more than 20 grand in the account to make it generate. But you have to be careful on these index annuities. Be very careful on that word index. Now, as opposed to a variable, which means you actually can be invested in the Standard & Poor's 500 if you have the right company. And by the way, my compliance people say I'm supposed to say you have to know the claims paying ability of the insurance company. So what you have to understand is the difference in these contracts. you got to be very careful, and you have to ask questions. And what I do regularly for people is I call companies up directly and ask them the question. But in the meantime, we got a caller here. I think we've got Dan. Dan, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Good morning, Joe. I think it's still morning.
Yes, it is, Dan.
Many years ago, I'm talking about well over 20, I was laid off from a job that I had been working for several years, and they took out an annuity
Okay.
in my name.
Okay.
And I don't know how much it started out as, but it's been paying me $144 a month
Yep.
and for well over 25 years.
Right.
And I called them one day just because, all right, hey, it's not a lot of money, but it's found money. And I called them up and I said, if I wanted to put this in my will, if I die. And the guy says, no, if you die, it stops.
That's right. That's right.
And he said to me, just for your own information, he says, we paid you more than the initial amount of this annuity. So I was like, I guess I better shut up or I'm still ahead.
Well, Dan, here's what happened. I want you to think about this logically. Let's just take a number and say we have $100,000 and you retire, and the company says, okay, Dan, here's your choices. We'll give you that $100,000 today, or we're going to give you a check every month for the rest of your life of $1,000. Let's just use that number. You say, gee, I like that, $1,000 a month every month for the rest of my life, because that's $12,000 a year. 10 years, that's 120 grand. 20 years, that's 240,000. Man, that's a good deal. What the question was that you didn't ask when they did this, or they didn't tell you, was, hey, what happens if I die after I get one check? Nobody gets a dime. Now, oftentimes, if your HR people at that time would have said, okay, fine, here's your choices. Instead of getting $1,000 a month, we can give you $800 a month and put your wife on that, or your spouse. So if you die, she keeps getting a check, or if she dies, you keep getting a check until the end of both of your lives, or either. You understand what I'm saying? So you can get a little smaller check. But you probably, if they did bring that up to you, you forgot it. If they didn't bring it up to you, it makes no difference, because you won, because you collected this money for 20 years. So you got basically double what they started off with, because you didn't die. But they expected.
The whole thing was, I never knew how much it started out as. I never signed anything. I just started. I got a letter in the mail saying, you're going to get this much every month.
Yeah.
And and it didn't say rest. Well, maybe I didn't read that far, but when I called up to see if it was in, should I put it in part of my will? They said, no, you died. That's the end of it, but you've collected way more than it started out.
And you won. You won. In fact, I've seen, and we're going to talk a little bit about this right now when we get off the radio, but I appreciate you calling in, bringing this up. Stay listening for a minute. I'm going to talk about this subject for a bit, okay?
All right, I'll hang up then?
Yeah, hang up, Dan, and thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Dan.
And
okay, thank you.
Leave the radio on.
Thanks.
So, here's what happens. It's called an immediate annuity. Immediate means a pension. So the way it works is this. Let's just take an example. We start off with $100,000 in cash. Got it? And we buy this, quote, immediate annuity. Immediate means we're going to start getting an income every month now for the rest of our life. Now, we have choices. We can get a high check, let's say $1,000 a month, if it's based on your life only, and you die and it's gone. The insurance company gets the rest of the money. But on the other hand, if you say, wait a minute, I've got a wife that I still like, so what I want is, if I die, I want her to keep getting a check, and they'll say, fine, then we'll give you $800 a month for not only your life, but for hers, whoever lives longer. But you say, wait a minute, what if we both get run over by a car at the same time and get killed next month after we got one check? Well, nobody gets a dime. I don't like that. Okay, well, let's put in what is called a 10-year certain. What's that mean? Well, that means in case you both die, somebody keeps getting that money for at least 10 years. Okay, but instead of $800 a month, now it's going to be $700 or $600 a month. So each time you add a wrinkle, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, that you have a guaranteed, you lower the dollar amount. Because We're going to die sooner or later. That's the way life works. But the bottom line is the immediate annuity is a pension. Now, how do they calculate this stuff? Well, number one, you take the amount of money you're going to start with. So when Dan retired, he had an X number in that account. He doesn't think he signed anything, but I bet you when he went to work for them, they had him sign something, and it included all of this in the 20 pages that he never read because nobody ever does. And it said, when you retire, this is what we're going to do when you're done. Your choice was pre-made, predetermined, and that's just the way it is. Because most of the time, insurance companies, they want to make sure they have documentation for everything. They're not going to do anything without proper documentation. So the immediate annuity is a pension, period. Now, how do they calculate it? 1, male or female. 2, how old are you? 3, this is the big one, the then current interest rate. Now, this becomes a major problem. So people look at me and say, Joe, I'd like to do that and get a check every month. What do you think? And I'll say, well, guess what? Interest rates are at an all-time low, so you're not going to have anything. Because when they purchase these documents to pay this money out, they're purchasing bonds at that moment that are paying X. Now, the X might be 1% or could be 10%. If it's 10, let's face it, you're going to get a higher check because they purchased it at one time and set that money aside. So literally, you have to be this is hard education stuff. Almost nobody knows this stuff. Even half the guys in the business don't know this stuff. But when you're advising a client, trying to get the right thing done, you have to be a bit careful. Now, there are some benefits to an immediate annuity. What are they? Well, number one thing is if you get sued, it can't be taken away from you. You ever hear of O.J. Simpson? He gets $25,000 a month.
NFL pension. Yep.
NFL retirement annuity. They cannot, I don't care how much he gets sued for and by how many people, they cannot touch that $25,000. Okay, so there are. Now think about this, Greg. If you're into a high-risk occupation like radio, well, okay, skip that part.
Especially climbing the tower. Yes.
Let's say you're a brain surgeon, and that's what you do is cut people's heads open. You know, the old joke is doctors get to bury their mistakes, but they can get sued. So very often, high-risk occupations might put money into annuity contracts because if they get sued, it can't be taken away from them. So there are reasons to do this stuff. Are there? Let's say you're not in a high risk, that you sit behind this desk all day long getting chubby on the radio. Greg, is that never mind that part. Anyway, but on your way home, you run somebody over with your car, and you get sued for $1 million, and your car insurance only goes up to $300,000 or $300,000. You're now stuck with a $700,000 judgment. Can't take your house, that's your homestead, and they cannot take retirement accounts or annuities. Everything else is subject to attachment. Rental properties, bank accounts, all kinds of stuff is subject to attachment. People think, oh, I can put it in a trust. Yes and no. Most trusts can get penetrated unless it's what's called an irrevocable trust, which you no longer own. You have no control over it. You give that away. So there's, irrevocable. Why would you do an irrevocable? Well, I'll give you an example. Greg's flying high, making $1 million a year, and he wants to leave money to his family, and he's got a $40 million estate, and the government says you can leave $10 million and there's no estate tax, but your kids are going to have to pay half of that $30 million in taxes. So $15 million. So Greg says, I'm going to go buy a life insurance contract for $15 million and pay the premium, which will pay the taxes, and I'll put that into an irrevocable trust that can never change, and it's only for that purpose. There's all kinds of strategies out there. Believe you me, when you have a lot of money, which is, I think this room is missing that, but I have dealt with some extremely affluent people, and there are strategies that are used by extremely brilliant tax attorneys to protect heirs and to protect you while you're alive in case of lawsuits. This is Sue America, if we haven't noticed.
All right, Joe, you've got plenty of wrinkles, but I want to talk about one of the wrinkles that you brought up, and that's the 10-year certain.
Right.
Does that start when the annuity starts? In other words, if I were to start an annuity today, I would get money at least for 10 years.
Correct.
But if I died after 5 years, my beneficiary would get it for 5 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Period. Now,
So
you can do a life annuity with a 10-year certain.
okay.
Life with 10. Okay, so what's that mean? You're going to keep collecting that check every month for the rest of your life. I don't care if you live to be 115. But if you died within that 10-year period, somebody would get that check for up to that 10-year period.
Okay. So the important number is the 10 then. It no matter whether you live or die, it's just 10 years and then it stops.
Not necessarily. Remember, I just said.
Well,
Unless
you do a life annuity,
a
yes.
life annuity with a 10-year certain,
Right.
or 15, or
Okay.
20. Well, each time you put this wrinkle in, remember the check amount goes down because they're guaranteeing this money now for this long period of time. So the object, and I had, remember my old lady that I took care of forever and
Yes.
ever and ever? She had this $100,000, and we got her a life income annuity, and I says, well, Virginia, we can put a wrinkle in here, then somebody else will get money when you die in case you die in the next 6 months. She goes, I don't want anybody getting a dime when I die. Well, her family, I remember when her family, when they came to see me, they said, I said, Virginia had $100,000. She now gets a life income. She's getting around $2,000 a month. And they said, what happens when she dies? And I said, nobody gets a dime. They all got up and left. That's the last time I ever heard from anybody. But the point was that was her decision. Her decision. So I don't care what other people want. What you do is what you think is the right thing to do at that time. Now, once you've done it and you got that first check, it's in concrete. It cannot be changed. Whatever that contract says, you've agreed to and signed, and you start collecting.
So let's say you have a life annuity, 10 years certain. The fact that her heirs were not going to get any money when she died, did that raise her payment that she would
Of
get?
course.
Okay.
Of course. Look, she was 80 years old when she started this. They expect her to die any minute. So what happens is the insurance company is going to give her a real substantial check thinking she's never going to live to be 90 or above. Well, she did. So she won. She beat the insurance company because she lived to be 91. So bottom line was all of these calculations go into that hat, and then they open that spigot up and then stuff comes out. Well, some people live 6 months, some 6 years, some 10, 20. You know, like this guy called in, Dan. He's 20 years collecting that money. If he did the math, he's got tons more, probably double what he started with because he lived another 10 years longer than he was supposed to.
Amazing.
340-1590, 340-1590. Now, there's lots and lots and lots of different investments out there. Today was just education on that one particular one. Something that a lot of people are concerned about today is because interest rates in banks are next to nothing because the Fed is, got the money down to nothing, no interest. There are debt instruments. Debt instruments are not common stock that are paying 5 and 6% interest. And I'm talking you collect every 3 months, you're going to get 5 and 6% on these monies. And that includes utilities, some of the biggest utilities that everybody knows. What's the negative on those? Well, the negative is you got to pay me a commission. The other negative is at some point they can be called, meaning they say, take your money back and leave. What are the call dates? Sometimes they're out 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Sometimes they're not even, they could call it any time they want. But the bottom line is you're going to get your money back or almost all of it depending on how quick you do this. So there are ways to generate income. And a lot of people, they have X amount of dollars saved and they need to get some income off it to subsidize their Social Security.
Yeah, most people do. That's their problem. That's why they do
most
reverse
people-
mortgages.
Well, if you had $1 million in the bank, forget the bank. If you had $1 million invested at 5%, that's $50,000 a year. Well, that sounds pretty good until you start to think, what else do I have for income? Well, I can stay home and wait till die, because $50,000 a year, unfortunately, is not big money anymore.
No.
You know, this is almost subsistence. Greg, if you look at you and Carol, if it wasn't for me paying you this big money, you'd be in trouble.
Yeah, we make about $10,000 a year, I think.
Yeah, but that's before taxes. Anyway, 340-1590, 340-1590. Now, by the way, if you want to call in, and Dan, thanks for calling, and we're not here, which we won't be in a few minutes, the radio station will take your name and number, and we'll give you a call, and anytime you want. 340-1590. Joe Martek, Financial Advisor. Victoria Loyd, Remax of Stewart. Mike Paulus, Mortgage Broker. Dan Warren, Independent Insurance Agent. And Greg Fasula, Attorney.
And how disappointing it is that you only got 3 lobsters in 2 weeks. Just unbelievably bad, Joe. I'm very disappointed.
Most expensive lobster dinner I've ever had in my whole life.
Absolutely.
Each lobster cost $300.
And it was worth every dime, right?
Well, hey, I don't know if it was or not, but we ate them, and they were very good. I think they were better because they cost so much. Hey, everybody, until next week, we want to thank you so much, Dan, for calling in. Our faithful listeners that aren't calling, I'm disappointed.
Yeah,
but
where's
remember,
everybody?
next week. Until then, Chief, what do you think? Are we down to the end? 10 seconds. What are
Wow.
final words of wisdom, Vic?
Wisdom is go out there and buy some real estate, do your investments properly. We got the great mortgage people. Get your insurance. Just call us. We're here for you.
Until next week, thank you, thank you.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.